Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Monday, September 9th. I cannot believe it. The U.S. Open finally over. It seems like nothing was going to be able to top Andreescu and Serena Williams as a final. And then we got today's final. What a thrilling five-set battle between the number 2 seed Rafael Nadal and the number 5 seed Daniil Medvedev we had. We're going, such a good final. We decided we're going to go live for the second time in one day. We're fascinated with this video feature. I happen to think my new haircut and shave look particularly good. If you listeners don't, we have 2 other people for you to stare at as we do this breakdown. And it's only right we bring in the whole trio as the U.S. Open coming to a close. Joining me first, as always, and I apologize for doing it in this order, but there'd be no other choice. It's my doubles partner in crime, and a guy who I guess looks like Prince Harry, Maxwell the Bauer Rothman. Maxie, what a final.
I mean, it wasn't just me that said it. My mom said it. She had 2 friends who were watching the. Hold on, they had 2 friends watching the live stream text her and be like, "I think that too. He looks exactly like Prince Harry." So you can screw yourself. Also, they must think you are really high right now, because if anyone who's watching this live heard you just say this is Monday, September 9th. And so we're on the mini break podcasting, but we're live. So sorry to anyone who's anyone who's watching this right now is like, these guys are messed up from today.
You caught me there for a second. I was like, what is he accusing me of? But yeah, that's true. This is, of course, being recorded as a mini break. Will be released for tomorrow morning for those who want to listen to it on your podcast commute to work. But Max may think he looks like Prince Harry. Our other guest, I am confident, is identical, the American doppelganger of Jill Simone, former Denison men's tennis superstar, cracked rackets, do it all, and the host of Wednesday's Mini Break podcast, James Foster McDonald. Look at that pretty face on the live show. Welcome.
Hello. Good to join you guys.
I mean, so Jamie, you didn't get the chance to come on earlier, but in general, U.S. Open.
It was a tasty one. Sums it up quite well. You're darn right. No, it was a ton of fun, and what a great way to end it tonight.
And the place we obviously are going to start tonight, the focus of today's conversation, it will actually be a mini break. And maybe that's why we had Jamie on. So I feel the peer pressure to get it done short. But only one match to talk about, our last singles match of the tournament. As I mentioned, Rafael Nadal, a 7-5, 6-3, 5-7, 4-6, 6-4 winner over Daniil Medvedev. He captures the 19th Grand Slam singles title of his career, which crazy in retrospect. It's also his 4th U.S. Open title of the 2010s decade. That's more than Roger Federer, who has 0 this decade. If I told you that in 2009, you'd have laughed. You look at the other things, he joins McEnroe, Sampras, Connors, and Federer as the only player to win 4 or more U.S. Opens. I mean, let's start there. The level of play, Max, tonight from both of these players, it was the quality you expect. We talk about best of 3 versus best of 5. If you're ever going to make a case for best of 5, you send this video to the jury.
Yeah, I mean, BG was all over Twitter, ready to say, any of you who have any disagreements with the best of 5 format, come at me, because this is a perfect example of why we have to have a best of 5 set match. And it was truly spectacular. I mean, even Medvedev said that in that 3rd set he was ready. He was thinking about his speech for getting 2nd place. With 20, he's like, this match has 20 minutes left. I was already thinking about my speech, but I had to fight it off and go point by point. And it obviously worked out for him as he got to that 5th set. And I mean, I don't want to get too far into my take before I hear a little from my man Jamie, who I don't get to see enough of you, man. We got to do this more often. This is great. But
this is good stuff.
I feel like the live video function, sorry listeners for this tangent, is just so we can all see each other more often.
Yeah, I mean,
fair.
Like your voice is sexy, but damn, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, for you. I was going to say, to get back on topic, Max, before we get into the stats, because I do want to do that deep dive. But Jamie, the level of expectations, we talked about it in our preview show. Daniil Medvedev, Rafa Nadal, without question, you look at what they accomplished. The 2 best players on a hard court since Wimbledon on the ATP Tour. Arguably 2 of the 4, for sure in the top 4 of players in terms of level from start to finish of the 2019 season in general thus far. Expectation-wise, I'm sure they're high for you, but this level, the level of this match, I feel like it met all expectations, right?
Yeah, for sure. This was not a letdown at all. I was a little worried going with those first two sets. I was like, are we really just going to get a Nadal straight set win here? Is it going to happen? And believe me, I'm very, very glad that didn't happen. So not a letdown at all. And great to see the fight from Daniil Medvedev. And, Nadal wins it. Honestly, I would have been happy either way. Great to see Nadal getting that 19th title. But regardless, I don't think anyone can debate the fact that it was a great match.
Well, look, I'm personally not a huge fan that Nadal got his 19th, and it is a little upsetting to me. And a super interesting fact, Medvedev is the first person born in the 90s to get 2 sets in a Grand Slam final, which is absurd considering he's a late 90s. There's no one from the early 90s that has gotten 2 sets in a Grand Slam final. And so, Gruskin, since you've been asking all the questions, I'm just curious, what is it, just the fact that we've had the dominance of the big three? And also, what did you think about today? An unbelievable match.
Well, and I apologize. I'm lost my voice between I was screaming at the TV
faking
and that fourth set. No, it was unbelievable. This idea that last night we had, you don't want to say a changing of the guard because that's placing too much pressure on Andreescu, but we had one of those generational moments where, like when Federer beat Sampras at Wimbledon, right, in 2000. It's a clip we've all seen so many times. If Bianca Andreescu continues to have success, her win over Serena last night, that's going to be a clip always turn to. Is this real? We're going to see that 35 to 3,500 times over the next year. So to top that from a final perspective, that was the expectations. It's, can this meet that? Because we have those same parameters, right? We have a next-gen guy who maybe not quite to the degree of Andreescu, but certainly the most successful next-gen player since Wimbledon, and then, 23 and under our definition of next-gen. And so he had a moment. He had an opportunity to establish himself, to have one of those breakthrough moments. And, let's get into the tennis now, because you start out set 1. And even before we get into Nadal winning the set, we said in our preview, Daniil Medvedev has to get out to a quick start. And Rothman, he broke Rafa right away.
He did. And, it's interesting. The game that I was talking about him playing in the previous match with Dimitrov, just the kind of the guiding the backhand cross court, putting it down the line, not really, he really didn't do anything special in the first, I want to say the first set as a whole. He really let Rafa make the mistakes. And, it worked for, for sure the first come out really slow. He was shanking forehands. And then Rafa started to, pick it up. He got in his groove a little bit. And I think that's when Medvedev said, okay, you know what, this whole Diego Schwartzman type game isn't going to work. It didn't work against Nadal last round. It's not going to work this round. And so you saw him really change up his game style in that second set, which allowed him to come back a little bit. But Nadal was still just on it. He was in the zone. You can't really get him out of it once he's clicked. So he did start off strong, but he didn't change his game style up quick enough in that first, pretty much 2 sets.
So it's interesting that you say that, because again, I talked to Jamie a little bit before we went live, and Jamie said it perfectly then, so I want to let him give his take. You slightly disagree with that, right?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. I think, at least at the beginning of the match, Medvedev looked great, mainly because Nadal looked so poor at the moment. You're right. He was completely mistiming forehands. I'm pretty sure I saw a couple. He just horribly mistimed and landed in front of the service line. Didn't even make clean contact. I was like, what is this guy doing, right? Of course, we knew that was not going to stay. We knew that was just a beginning of the match sort of hitch thing, and he was going to get on his horse and be good, right? So the weird thing to me, though, is commentators kept saying, no, Medvedev needs to first strike tennis. He needs to be the aggressor every single point. And I don't know, I was just kind of shaking my head, because I don't think that that's necessarily the right game plan. And I don't think that was what Medvedev needed to do. And I don't think that's what got him back into this match, right? I think his game style needed to be a little bit more consistent. So showing that he can go toe-to-toe in longer rallies, and then once he gets the chance, pulling the trigger, because Medvedev's the kind of player that when he's in a consistent rally, that's how tolerance, and that's how he gets his confidence to be able to rip the big ball, right? It's not just second ball of the rally, I'm going to crush one. He can do that. We've seen him doing that just because he's so talented. When he was stressed out and when he was cramping and injured against Wawrinka, for example, he was able to pull that out because he was on fire and he is that talented. But really, when he's at his best, he is pushing people around the court. a lot of times with strokes and stuff that doesn't look that perfect, but he's not exerting a ton of energy. And then when he gets his chance, he pounces on it. And I think that he needed to do a little bit more of that as opposed to just ripping big balls right from the go.
And is that not what he did, though? I do feel like even the commentators were saying that Nadal looked like the one that wasn't able to hang in these long rallies. Nadal was the one that was trying to take initiative and, put balls down the line and really be the aggressor. And that's pretty crazy to.
But isn't that also just a typical Rafa Nadal performance, right? That's him. He is always going to try and dictate. And I'm not saying you're not saying that, Rothman, but to me, the way he was attacking Medvedev, it wasn't anything unusual from the way Rafa typically attacks his usual opponent.
No, but I do think that there are very few players that can stick in the rally long enough with Nadal to make Nadal say, okay, it's time. Like I can't stay in this rally for another 40 balls. Like I need to find my shot and be aggressive with it.
So that leads me to the first of the match statistics I want to bring up. One of our favorite statistics, always from Great Shot Podcast earliest days through the mini break, and one of the reasons we enjoy the U.S. Open website so much. They offer distance covered per point. You talked about Nadal going for it at the end of the 40-shot rally. It really did feel like every point at least 20 balls, right? Neither of these guys were going to go for their ball unless they knew they had cracked a huge opening for themselves on the court, because both of them are too quick. They cover too much ground. They're too dangerous if you give them a clean look at a pass. Total distance covered over the 5 sets in this match. Daniil Medvedev, 20,553.5 feet, the highest number I have seen all tournament. He's at 60.3 feet feet per point. Rafa, 21,893 feet. So again, around 4 miles of sprints for these guys. Rafa's at 64.2 feet per point. What that tells me is A, every time Rafa runs around a forehand, he's adding an extra foot to himself. But B, this was the most physical match on the men's side I saw the entire tournament. Daniil Medvedev knew, I'm the 23-year-old. I'm the, playing the 33-year-old guy whose knees wear out on a hard court. They just do. That's Rafa at this point. The only way, it's so hard to have the discipline to beat him. It's so hard to hit him off the court. You really have to chart your route and be disciplined about it. Nadal or Federer has enough skill to hit Nadal off the court. He's maybe him and Del Potro are the only one. Djokovic, the only guy we've seen outlast Nadal. And that's what Medvedev tried to do. And my question to you guys, I thought it was interesting because, Rothman, we were talking on the phone during the match with your parents. Your dad adamantly upset that Medvedev kept throwing in drop shots early on, right? That was his thing. You said Rafa would go down the line. Medvedev, through the first 3.5 sets, when he was done with the point, he'd try a drop shot to bail himself out. And I guess I want to go to you first, Jamie, because you made this point about the physicality. Even though not a lot, but a healthy sum of those drop shots didn't work, to me, it felt like that was Medvedev's way of establishing, look, I'm going to keep wearing you down, and it's little crack by little crack by little crack. And even when he lost that point, it was making Nadal, go from 6 feet behind the baseline to the net. It was just about trying to slowly wear him out. That was the way he wanted to attack.
Yeah, and so I liked when Medvedev did it that way. I hate when it's used. I feel like Djokovic is probably the worst top tier
abuser, drop shot
exactly.
abuser.
And he just doesn't use it. It's the bailout. It's the most classic bailout drop shot there is. Now, when Medvedev's using it, he's trying to add variety into that because, look, what Nadal wants a lot of times, one of two things. He wants somebody to be scared of how good he is on defense and overhit, or two, when they are in a rally, just giving him the same ball over and over and over because he'll wail on it, he'll put a ton of spin on it, and he's good. He can do that for hours. And so I think Medvedev did a great job of throwing that variety in there. You mentioned the drop shots. I think that's one example of that. Sure, they didn't always work, but they kept Rafa on his toes, right? He knows he's going to have to move laterally and north-south, and he has no idea what's coming, right? Medvedev can throw so many different things at him, and I think that's one thing he really did a great job of, especially in that 4th set. I mean, we talk about the 3rd set. He really did just steal it at the end. We saw him do that so many times throughout the tournament.
Wawrinka,
exactly.
Lopez, Dimitrov first set.
Yeah, exactly right. He did it so many times throughout this U.S. Open, and so he did it again. And one thing I think that helps him be able to do this is just at any point, your opponent, if you're playing Daniil Medvedev, you don't know what's coming.
100%. I think you make such a good point there.
I love the north-south. It's also like northwest, southeast. You're going every which direction. You're flailing.
Give me all the cardinal directions, right? I don't know.
But the thing that I think is so honestly impressive with Medvedev and the drop shot is that he's willing to do it against Nadal that often. So many people are scared to do it because he's so quick. Nadal gets to almost every single one of them. And I'm curious what the statistic is on how successful his drop shots were today. I want to say he's at least 50%. I don't think it was that much worse than that. And if you're getting at least 50% on drop shots against Nadal, that's something. You're keeping him on his toes. And I think that's the most important part, is that Nadal isn't expecting every single time that you're in a ground stroke rally that he can just sit back there and wait until he gets his ball. So I think that's hugely important. The thing that I wish I saw more of from Medvedev that I thought was successful and could have continued to help him throughout this match was his slice. I felt like, given the fact that he was hitting drop shots and Nadal was starting to expect it.
We saw a lot of forehand slices, Rothman.
No, well, but those are different. Those are
you're saying aggressive slice. You're saying like an approach. I see.
Or not even necessarily an approach slice. He was hitting some low slices to the backhand where Nadal was kind of popping them up, and Medvedev was able to run around the backhand, hit his forehand inside out, and start to dictate the point. It really helped change the pace, and I think also considering the fact that he was hitting so many drop shots, it might have been able to disguise a few extra if he was throwing in the slice a little more. I thought it was really effective.
See, my problem is, and we talked about this again in the preview, you can't give Nadal junk, right? If you give him junk, that's when he runs around the forehand, and now you're going corner to corner to corner to corner, and you're in his trap. Now,
I mean, you have to be smart about it. You have to hit it in the right spots at the right times. And he did do that. I think that's my point was, when he did it right, it worked really well for him.
Yeah, that's fair. And I can't speak to the drop shot success. I can tell you on the day, we talked about Daniil Medvedev is going to have to be aggressive. He's going to have to throw in some serve and volley because Nadal's 6 feet behind the baseline. He did that. He's going to have to pick balls to move in behind because, again, Nadal's so far behind the baseline. You just have to take the space. And was he hesitant at times? Absolutely. The overhead he missed to get broken, I think, for 5-2 was when he's backpedaling. Jamie and I had this debate earlier. Jamie, you said, adamant the ball should have let the ball drop. And it felt like that was the, one of like 10 times we saw Medvedev move forward and then get lobbed by Nadal or just be shaky with his first volley. So you would have liked to see him have more success. But still, for Daniil Medvedev to go down 2-0 and still produce a winner to unforced error ratio of 75 to 57. He goes 50 of 74 on net points won. I'm sure that isn't every time he went to the net. 117 of 182, so 64% on the first serves. Wins 65% of those points, 54% of his second serve points. Yes, he gets broken 6 times and allows 21 break points for Nadal, but he also fights off 15 of those break points. He himself also creates 15 break point chances, converts 5 of them. I mean, Daniil Medvedev's level, and we'll talk about Nadal after this, but just to kind of cap off the Medvedev portion, because as the next gen guy, the three of us, he's, I think, in between the ages of all three of us. He's February 96, right? That's you, Rothman. And he's so like,
month apart.
That's what I'm saying. And so it really is crazy. I guess we'll start with Rothman, and then I want to hear what you have to say, Jamie. This level from Daniil Medvedev that he's shown since Wimbledon, but really all year long. We've seen little, bits and pieces from a lot of next-gen guys. We've seen them have good weeks. We've even seen them have multiple good weeks. But this run from Medvedev feels like the most real, the most likely to sustain success of any next-gen player. Do you think it's just us falling in love with him on the hard courts, or do you think this guy's, the real deal? He's here to stay at this point.
Yeah, I mean, 4 straight finals. Granted, yes, it is on the hard court, and I do think that's his best surface. But it's unbelievable. No other guy has produced results like this. And I guess you could look at. There's been some runs from Coric where he's made a couple quarterfinals in a row. There's been
Zverev, the big elephant in the room.
Right. I mean, hard to even think about him right now with how bad he's been the last few months, really. You could say that FAA's run this year has been pretty good, and obviously he's super young and hasn't had the results like this. But I mean, this is just the clear, outstanding results for the next gen guys, and I think that we're gonna see more of this from Medvedev next year. He's shown that he's just so smart. He's so smart on court. That's the thing that I think is the most impressive about him. And they talked a lot about this in the booth today, how he thinks about every single point, every game. He changes up his game style, and he's so mentally tough. Every time that there was a breakpoint opportunity, he came in there, changed it up. He served and volleyed. We don't see that often from Medvedev. I mean, he just
served and volleyed successly.
Yeah. Did it on the big points, and it takes some huevos, as you like to say, Gruskin. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of success from him next year.
Off the court as well. Stellar post-match interview. He talked about how his relationship with the crowd really did propel. I mean, he's going to be a New York favorite for the next 15 years.
He definitely won the affection of the fans back after his quarterfinal match.
He played it perfectly. He was funny. Great. He was charming. He, considering English is not his native language, excellent, very fluent speaker. Again, Jamie, same question to you. It feels real.
Yeah, no part of this feels like a fluke, right? I think he proved that throughout the 2 weeks, and of course, just the outrageous season, especially on the hard courts that he's had. And the thing that's going to be so dangerous to the rest of the field now is this is now a Medvedev who, I won't say it's done, but he is very close to completely figuring out his game. And that doesn't mean it won't adapt further. He is how he can win matches and how he can dig out sets when other people don't expect him to, right? And I mean, so he's understanding that he can go toe-to-toe with Nadal just by staying in rallies sometimes. He knows that he can do that. What kind of confidence does that bring? I mean, that is absolutely huge. Granted, it's not the same type of grinding like Nadal does, and yeah, he's going to throw in some different shots, and of course, there are going to be times where he's going to need to be aggressive, and it's all match by match when you get down to that granular of a level, but ultimately, he's understanding what he can do with his game. He knows that on big points, he can pull off a serve and volley with all the pressure in the world. I mean, he knows that he can do all this stuff, and he knows that he can execute on the biggest stage. I mean, he almost completed a massive comeback here. The fact that he even got back to a fifth set, completely climbed out of a 2-break hole in that fifth set as well. I mean, just the confidence has got to be off the charts coming out of this. So I think he's here to stay for sure.
Yeah. So as the leader of the Alex Zverev club, Alex.
Leader of a lot of clubs. Let's be clear.
Sure. Same question as we've got going for Medvedev. What you think about his continued success, but do you think he's going to have more success than Zverev moving forward?
You had to ask this today. Look,
sorry.
It's a fair question. The big takeaway from this is Daniil Medvedev checks off every box you want from a tennis player. Can he? Fitness-wise, does he have it? Check. Height-wise, does he have it? Check. So that means the serve comes naturally. Check. Does he make returns? Check. Does he make the extra ball? Always. Check. This is a guy who can hurt you in so many different ways. Does he have weapons? Yes, with the serve, with the forehand, with the backhand, when he can go flat on all of those strokes. Yes, just the tools he has and the mental fortitude. In multiple matches this week, he stole sets where he was not the better player throughout the majority of the set. That's what a winner does. How many times have we seen Jill Simone? Sorry, Jamie, you inspired me. How many times have we seen? I can't believe I said that. Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, Stan Wawrinkas of the world, guys who have major championships, win matches they don't. They're not the better player. And the answer is in every tournament they've won, they had a set like that. And to do that is something Alex Zverev has never done at a major. All the quarterfinals he made, he was in control of those matches throughout the match. In the Diego Schwartzman match, a match where you could have argued he stole a set where he wasn't the better player. Well, he didn't end up winning that match. And so we haven't seen that from him yet. We've seen him do it in a 2-out-of-3 set format. And for a fan like me who values tennis week in, week out, I'm not just watching at the majors. That means something. To you guys, that means something. But it's undeniable to say that at this point, Daniil Medvedev, he is the leader in the next-gen clubhouse because none of them have had a run that's from the end of Wimbledon to now that's been as dominant as this.
100%. Before we move on to Nadal, can we just, No, it's more of an Nadal thing.
Okay, so I have one last question, Medvedev-wise. You look at him live rankings now. I believe he's number 4, career high for him. You look at him in the race for the year-end title. I think he's number 4 as well. He is qualified now, so he will be in the ATP Tour Finals. This is a guy who has played so many matches. I think he's now 50 and 17 on the year. League leader, ATP leader in wins. A guy who has proven it, right? It's all hard courts, and he's got nothing left to prove on a hard court. Given this run, given how physically demanding these past 6 weeks have been for him, Jamie first, do you think we'll see him at all before the World Tour Finals? Do you think he plays the Asian swing? And if so, would you recommend that or not?
Honestly, I don't know. It's hard for me to know at this moment whether his body. I mean, look,
he shouldn't walk for 2 days.
Exactly.
I'd be like, I'm not.
We all saw the amount of tape that guy had on his body. I mean, we're talking about pounds at this point,
Rothman
right?
ankle style.
Yeah, and so really, like, it's hard for me to answer that. If he's fine physically, I mean, understandably, maybe there is a mental break that he wants to take, but at the same time, too, if he's feeling confident, there's no reason not to, at least play some of it. I'm not sure, I'm not saying he needs to go and just completely drain himself in those because, yeah, you want to be fresh for the finals, of course. But there's no reason you can't play a couple of those in there, especially on a hard court. Why not? With his game, with his confidence, why not?
Someone in tennis Twitter said that he should sleep until the ATP finals, which I totally agree. He could go into hibernation.
He totally
Yeah.
He didn't get a Laver Cup offer. We're not going to see him there. That feels like
he doesn't wear a
ridiculous.
Well,
yeah, no, because they don't know where to place Russia. They're like, are they Europe? Are they World? Let's just not invite any of them.
I mean, Team World could probably use him. Let's be real here.
Yeah, that's true. Let's avoid the political.
I was about to make a great political joke, but I'm going to let it slide.
I'm gonna keep going. Look, FAA denied his offer to Laver Cup, which is stupid.
But if Medvedev was eligible for Team World, that is so foolish by McEnroe. FAA not wanting to get smoked as a part of Team World, I can understand.
Yeah, that's fair. But back to the question of the Asian swing. I mean, look, Shanghai is in the first week of October, so he's got 3 weeks until then. He doesn't need to play Beijing or Tokyo. I know they're ATP 500s, and I don't know if he has points to defend in either of them.
He does. He had a great run at the end of last year. But he's already clinched World Tour Finals.
He's clinched World Tour, and that'd be a great way to get some rest for next year, too, because then he's going to have to defend those points next year. He's got enough points from this U.S. Open. I don't think he needs to worry about it. Take off the next 3 weeks, go play Shanghai, play Paris, and then play the ATP Tour and be done with your year.
Use that 1.9 million. Go on a delayed honeymoon with.
Oh my God!
Please, yes. That's what you use a paycheck like that for. No, I mean, yes. I if I'm him, who more likely to win the Paris Masters, him or Berrettini?
Well, we talked about this. Berrettini is the better sock. Sock won Paris. Berrettini's winning Paris.
Also, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just adults of Paris are always wild. Whoever just wins it. It's like, oh, Khachanov won it. Sock wins it. And Berrettini, hey, why not?
Berrettini's going to win it.
Come on up, stud. Yeah.
By the way, shout out to listener Abe Huku. Medvedev last year won Tokyo, so he does have points to defend. Got a little text from him. Appreciate that. And listeners, if you have any thoughts, we are going to try and work that in more and more. Yeah, Abe, a former doubles partner of mine, so we're cheating a little bit, but it still counts. So now let's move on. It's amazing we're this far in and we haven't said a word about our champion, Rafa Nadal, 19th major title, maybe his biggest physical battle to date, given that he's 33 years old and moving over 21,000 feet of sprints in a match. It felt like at 5-4 when he was serving for it, I think he won the 30-15 point, and then he kind of stayed crouched for a little bit, and it almost looked like he was cramping. And there's so many opportunities for Medvedev to come back in this match. He put so much pressure on his opponent, and yet for Rafa, he only makes 58% of his first serves. First serve really, it felt like, was deserting him in a couple of those sets, but still, for the match. Not bad, especially in that first set, but 58% for Rafa there. Wins 77% of those first serve points, 52% on the second serve. We talked about how impressive it was. He creates 21 break points for himself, converts 6 times, 62 winners against 46 unforced errors, an astounding 51 of 66 at the net. I talked about his overhead looking shaky. That didn't even matter because Jamie, just the way Rafa physically imposes himself in a match is still unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, and it's what we've come to know and expect, right? I think that's part of the reason why we can spend just, I don't know, a lopsided amount, even though Nadal wins this match, a lopsided amount of our discussion can be around Daniil Medvedev and his run, because we know what's coming from Nadal, and this is what we know, right? I mean, a little bit shaky in the beginning, honestly pretty bad, not horribly worrisome because he got back to normal Rafa pretty quick. The physicality, it's what we expect, right? He knows that is the biggest part of his game, and of course, as he's getting older, look, he's been really, really candid and says, "Hey, I can't just be behind the baseline and only grind," right? He has to be aggressive and has to do a lot more with his serve, for example. He knows that he's got to shorten some points, but look, he didn't look like he needed to shorten too many points tonight. He looked really, really good from a physical standpoint.
Rothman, you love him from his Spanish sex appeal aspect, the sleevelessness, everything's rocking. He's a little balder, but still physically, for him to put together this performance. What were your thoughts on watching Rafa?
I mean, I really did think that Medvedev was going to outlast him there for a good while. I mean,
if Medvedev breaks for 2-0 in the 5th set, it's a completely different match.
Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, if he doesn't give up that second break too.
Yeah, it's just that forehand, 40 love, 2-all 40 love. He had the easiest forehand. He sprayed it long. It's the little things like that come back to bite you. How many times do we say it?
And I saw it too. I saw it in Nadal's eyes. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was the craziness, the fierceness in Nadal's eyes. In that 5th set, he entered a zone that we've seen, so that's why he's a great champion. Rothman, I'm sorry we cut you off.
No, it's okay. I mean, it gets you fired up. You're like, it's truly it's a catchy kind of feeling from him. But I don't know. There were so many opportunities in this match for both of them. I feel like I saw a lot of weird unforced errors from Nadal, not just in that first set, but I mean, missed volleys here and there that were interesting. The overhead was interesting. I mean,
he was hitting overhead like Djokovic.
Yeah.
What are we saying here?
There was some weird stuff, but I think that, I mean, I don't know if I'm sure we were going to get to this, but the time violations. I mean, first of all, we called that there would be some, and the yes hit 3 times, but crazy for when it happened twice on break point. Loses his first serve to a time violation.
Wait, can we say though, I told you it was going to happen in the first set. The chair umpire was going to say, "Rafa, we're not doing this today." And then credit to him, he got booed post-match, which was something I was going to talk about. And, we'll talk about Rafa's post-match in a second. But I think he just stickler to the. I like it. I'm like, fine, that's fine. It almost felt like Rafa at certain points would just blow the first serve so that he could take as long as he wanted before the second.
Yeah, he's like, I got to catch my breath. I'm old out here. I need my time. But Medvedev was talking to the chair umpire as well and saying he's not ready for me on my serve.
It got chirpy.
It did. There was a little bit going on there, and kudos to them for having really good sportsmanship at the end of the match. But I'm with Medvedev. I mean, Nadal. I mean, it's classic Nadal to take his sweet ass time. Excuse my language, and just be back there. I know it's part of his whole mind game thing. But nose, ear,
butt, crotch, nose, ear.
Right, but it's just ridiculous. You've got to be ready for the server. I don't care how tired you are. That's part of the game. So clearly, I mean, we were talking about this this morning in the preview that Nadal is going to have to change his game moving forward. He's going to have to be more aggressive. I don't know how many more 5-set matches like this, especially when he's playing a next gener.
Counterpoint. 19 slams. I feel like he's like, I'm good. Like, this is pretty sweet.
I feel like if he does this again, his body's gonna break.
So this is the question, right, Jamie? It's now Nadal puts together another 2-slam season, and from our guy at Luca Beck, who's always so good with these stats, he joins Borg, Djokovic, Sampras, and Federer as the only guys who have won 4 titles at least 2 of the slams. Federer, the only guy who's done it at 3 of the slams. He has at least 2 slam titles in a single year for the 5th time in his career, tying Novak Djokovic, and now both of them 1 season behind Roger Federer. The big question that, the easy talking point, Federer's at 20, Nadal's at 19, Djokovic is at 16. Jamie, is there anything you saw today that would make you think, maybe or maybe not, just after this major 20, that pursuit for Rafa? What are your thoughts on it?
Jamie, super quick, one other stat. Nadal is actually now the only man over 30 to have four Grand Slams after the age of 30. So Federer hasn't done that, which is crazy. But
I feel like I just read a book with everything I just got thrown at me there. No.
Analyze it all now.
Well, here we go. Look, impressive, obviously. I think in terms of pursuit of 20, I don't know why that wouldn't be attainable, especially at the French, right? Like, what have we seen to say that he can't do that again?
Well,
look, on a hard court, of course, we know the deal with his knees. This year, the draw broke really well for him, right? He had a great draw, and he capitalized on it. We talked about the fact that it would be a huge blow for him if he didn't get this, but he did. He gets this title, and he's now Federer. I don't know. I think you can make a very realistic case that he'll pass Federer. Look, he's only 1 behind him, and I think he's got an easier path at something like a Roland Garros than Federer has anywhere. I think in terms of betting or literally any way you look at it, that's more of a guarantee. That's a higher chance that he can win that one event as opposed to Federer winning any of them in particular. We saw that with someone like Djokovic who can perform this well at Wimbledon, right? He completely stole that from him. So there's no reason to me that that would say he can't reach 20 or, pass it.
Yeah. Max?
It just makes me
Tell me I'm
pissed
wrong.
now. No, that's why I'm sighing over here. Like, it just makes me pissed now that Fed didn't secure that Wimbledon. Like, dude, you could have been at 21. You could have set Joker back to 15. Medvedev, you could have saved us all the hassle of him being closer if you had just won this. Wow, that was super immature, Alex. It's late.
It actually is Monday, September 9th.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It is now Monday.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, he's 34. He could win 3 more Frenches until he's 37, just like Fed. No doubt.
For the last time at the U.S. Open, let's travel to my fake casino. I'm going to set the odds for you guys one more time. You tell me if this sounds right. For the men's Grand Slam title, right now, we'll put Rafael Nadal minus 250 to end up in the lead. Novak Djokovic even. Roger Federer plus 500. Which guy are you betting on?
Djokovic.
I
hate to say it.
Yeah,
but it's by far the most likely at this point. Look at this year alone and last year. Like, he's coming out of times where he doesn't even look like he's that good, and then magically he shows up, and it looks like sometimes he just waltzes through a hard court major, right? Like, I guess I could say, luckily, with my own bias, it didn't happen at this U.S. Open. Nadal ends up getting it, but I feel like it was just yesterday where Djokovic had 12 slam titles, right? And now he's like 16 knocking on these guys' doors. Like, there's no reason he's not going to have like 25, and everyone's like, okay, what just happened?
Here's the other thing, though. Nadal split majors with Djokovic this year.
True.
Which
he
is
won
ridiculous.
2 this year.
But one's the French, right?
Right. Given.
Those count as a third for him at this point.
Yeah.
Everyone after 12 or after 10 only counts for a third. That will be the question I'm sure we will be talking about for the next 3 years as the big
Gruskin,
really do come down.
Are you also Djokovic?
No, this is how I get to be the neutral. I'm pulling a Mike Genender here.
No, you don't.
No,
get
I'm
to
just
do
kidding.
that.
No, I'm going to give you an answer for that question as well. But
Sure.
if you throw Serena in the mix too, I'm curious what you guys think, because she's at 23 right now. So I should probably be the odds favorite, but you think Rafa could catch her? Djokovic maybe. I'm going to stick with Djokovic. Sure. Let's say Rafa. Here's the thing.
23 though, dude. And Serena could win another one.
So Rafa wins 2 more French Opens. Let's say or he wins 1 more French Open for sure and 1 other miscellaneous. But I'm going to give him 2 more. which feels a lot because he's one knee injury away from it all being over, right? So he gets to 21. The question then literally is, do I think Federer's going to win anymore? No, I don't. I really don't. Do I think
Fed's got a Wimbledon?
So the question
has a Wimbledon.
Is Novak Djokovic good enough still so good on a hard court that even if he declines 5%, none of the next gen guys or anyone in the field can catch him on that surface? Well, Daniil Medvedev showing this level now makes me think like a 24, 25-year-old Medvedev against a 34, 35-year-old Djokovic. It's the same thing we'll see here. Only Djokovic's game predicated that much more on athleticism. He doesn't have the weapons that Rafa does from the ground, but I think he can keep that level of physicality up. So yeah, I would still stick with Djokovic.
For a second, I thought you were saying, can a next gener like Medvedev catch up to a Djokovic? I was like,
I'm
no.
saying at a per tournament level.
Not.
Yeah, in a single tournament. Yes, yeah. Exactly. And so I'll say Djokovic because he's still only 4 down. And again, this is predicated on Rafa not getting injured, Rafa passing Federer. But I just think Djokovic is the guy. He's too young. He's too good. He won 2 majors this year. Don't forget that.
Yeah, look at this. If he wins only 2 majors, and honestly, it kind of feels like, whoa, he only won 2 majors at some points. It's like, okay, if he only wins 2 majors and plays what? Even if he only plays to like 37, 5 more years, it's 10 majors.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, that's insane. And it is the fact that it seems so attainable is what's scary about that number. I don't know.
No, I think that's absolutely it. I think that's why it's going to be so fun now to watch this new dynamic. That's why we want next gen guys adding into the mix, because you throw in, let's say Team steals a French from Nadal. Let's say Medvedev steals the Australian Open 2019. Djokovic, if healthy, probably enters the 2019 Australian Open as the Bovada favorite. But when Medvedev comes out as the second favorite odds-wise, that's not going to shock anyone. That's justified. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that breaks down. But we have gone way over, considering there's only one match to talk about. And, now that we have some dead time, I do want to save some topics for that dead time. And we will have mini breaks going this week. We're going to talk winners and losers from the U.S. Open, look at the bigger pictures. Again, it's hard to say Novak Djokovic not getting a slam title here, allowing Nadal to get a U.S. Open, add to his count. Feels like a lost opportunity for him. So those sort of things, we've got some fun guests lined up as always. So be on the lookout for that. But my last questions to you guys for today's mini break, just your final take. What's your final take? The 2019 U.S. Open, Max Rothman was...
Well, I'm going to use this as my chance to just quickly comment on the post-match interviews, because the booing of the
entertaining.
Chair, it was, come on, guys. That's ridiculous. Medvedev, hilarious, saying that the whole thing where he was thinking when he was sitting in the seat watching the Rafa video, if he won, what were they going to show of him? Great question. I don't know what they were going to show of him. Maybe his City and Cincy titles. I don't know.
He lost the final of City, so he doesn't even have that.
Oh, right. He lost to Kyrgios. Sorry. So literally
him losing to Kyrgios, they show the handshake. They're like, dude, you lost. So you played. So, yeah.
They'd probably show the middle finger thing just for humor. just to kind of.
They show him beating Stan Wawrinka 2017 Wimbledon. They're like, that's all we got.
So I thought that was good. Medvedev did interviews in 3 languages. Great for him.
The Rafa Spanish shout out at the end was awesome.
It's great, per usual.
Dude speaks in Spanish, let me tell you.
Yeah, nice. Spanish sex appeal is quicker. Real.
I think he speaks quicker Spanish than I do English. I can get out 100 words per minute. So can he.
Yeah, no, he's fast out there. But overall, I think this U.S. Open is what we wanted. We got to see a lot of different players deep in the tournament, a lot of next-geners deep in the tournament, and it was super fun. You really didn't know what was going to happen on any given day. So overall, super happy with how the U.S. Open went this year.
James Foster?
Yeah, lived up to the hype, right? And ultimately ended in a battle between a next-gen and a legend of the sport. That's what we want. We want these next-gen guys knocking on the door. That's what we want. And
also the next-gen women, by the way. Andreescu Williams, same thing.
Exactly. And so this is what we want, right? Whether you call it passing of the baton, on the men's side, looks like the veterans aren't quite ready to give that up yet. It's fun. It's fun to see these young guys challenge the guys who have just had such a stranglehold on, in this case, the ATP market for so long now, right? And so it's really fun to see someone like Medvedev completely push Nadal to the brink, show a ton of mental fortitude not to just make that a simple straight set match and give the crowd what they wanted, a 5-setter. Truthfully, it was a ton of fun, and I'm glad that that's how it ended. Winner or loser there, I would have been fine either way. Medvedev wins that. That's awesome. That's a completely different storyline. This one, Nadal still, manages to come out on top. But like I said, Medvedev has a ton of confidence. These other next-gen guys are probably looking at this saying, like, hey, we can challenge these older guys. I think it just builds for an even more fun 2020.
The women's final, as I mentioned, set the record for ESPN most viewed tennis match of all time. I will be fascinated to see, even though the men had to compete with the first football Sunday. And by the way, the split screen of experience of watching my Lions tie the freaking Cardinals, which is a joke. But we don't do football on this pod. We don't do football. We don't do politics. I had that split screen with the tennis, and it was just overwhelming. But it was amazing. Like, again, we had Bautista, Agut, Tsitsipas, Thiem, I think Kachanov all lost in the same day. And that was 6 months ago, because the tournament got better and better as it progressed. And, we appreciate you listeners for sticking with us, for checking out all of our content throughout the time. This U.S. Open has been so fun because it really felt like the listeners were engaged. The fans in New York were engaged. We were all engaged in this experience as the last slam of the year. Before we wrap, have to give a huge shout out to the super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westoff. Instead of swearing, I'll say this: hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you deserve a piece of that Daniil Medvedev paycheck, Westoff, because you and Fligner killed it all U.S. Open long. So huge shout out to you guys. If you missed any of the content, you're already itching to learn more about last U.S. Open, be sure to check out our website, crackedrackets.com. Mini breaks from throughout the 2 weeks. I think the only day we missed was Labor Day Monday. So if you want to check out any of that action, again, listen to those things. Go check that out. Cracked interviews wise, Steve Johnson, Mitchell Kruger, Katie Volley, that's all sitting pretty for you to listen to. So again, we've got a ton of great content there. Great Shot podcast, all of these things. Like, rate, subscribe, review, please. We want to hear from you, the listener. We've got some mailbag ideas. And again, content-wise, wide open from here to the end of the season. So if, we'll be talking a bunch of different funky things. If you guys have any thoughts, please feel free to send them our way. But again, from my wonderful co-hosts, Maxwell LeBauer, Rothman, and James Foster McDonald, from our super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westoff, and from our entire teams at both the Cracked Rackets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. For the last time from the U.S. Open, Maxwell, Jamie, what do we tell the listeners?
That's a break.
Beautiful synchronization, boys, and we hope you enjoyed the U.S. Open. Thanks, everyone.